Ark of the Covenant, or as it is called in the Bible, the Ark of God, the Ark of the Covenant of God, the Ark of the God of Israel. In the Scriptures, it is called Aaron, which in Hebrew means an ark or a box. What is interesting is that he is described in detail. As written, the coffin is 2.5 meters or 8 feet long and 1 meter or 3 feet wide and high. By the way, it was built from almond wood and was encrusted with gold. On the lid were 2 golden statues of cherub angels arranged opposite each other. On the sides of the coffin were 2 golden circles through which 2 long wooden sticks passed so that the coffin could be carried. The ark contained the tablets of God's 10 commandments that Moses received from God himself on Mount Sinai. Next to the tablets in the ark was Aaron's rod. Otherwise, Aaron was the high priest and Moses' brother, assistant, and heir. In addition, there was a golden bowl with manna, which we will talk about another time. These sacraments in the covenant ark were proof of God's covenant with people. The ark was always at the head of the Jews' advancing procession. Not everyone was allowed to wear it. Only the Jewish high priests were. Anyone who touched the coffin without permission, even by accident, fell dead. On one occasion, in a battle with the Philistines, the ark was seized by the Philistines, but they decided to return it to the Israelites, since the ark brought them many misfortunes. After many years of wandering through the desert and conquering territories in the land that God promised the Israelites, the ark was placed in Solomon's temple in Jerusalem. Otherwise, there is a story that when it was installed in the temple, a strange cloud filled the temple premises. In 587 BC, the Babylonians conquered Jerusalem and burned Solomon's temple to the ground. Since then, all traces of the ark have been lost. Various conspiracy theories suggest that the Ark of the Covenant was actually a weapon. What actually makes us wonder if these considerations have a basis? We must consult historical events and mythological stories. When the Jews came out of Egyptian slavery, led by Moses, to whom God promised a living space for that people, under the leadership of Joshua, who was otherwise their military leader after the death of Moses, they conquered the territories of many nations. We come to the question of how that nation, which essentially consisted of refugees, had military superiority over the indigenous peoples whose territories they conquered, where the promised land was located according to God's instructions. Of course, we should also include the option that among the Jewish refugees, there were a lot of military-capable people. But what is certain is that as refugees, they did not have adequate weapons for conquest. Otherwise, the traditions describe various military tactics that the Israelis used, but we cannot ignore the fact that Moses grew up under the military education of Egypt as an excellent expert in military strategy. But was that really enough? In order to reach some conclusions, we must refer to the descriptions of the Ark of the Covenant and the instructions for its handling. The Ark of the Covenant was handled only by the highest clergy. There are descriptions that flashes of lightning flash from it, and that anyone who tried to approach it was instantly killed. Could this be some kind of artificial electrical discharge that only high priests were trained to handle? We must consider that the Ark of the Covenant was always at the head of the column in battles. If the statements from the ancient writings are correct that flashes of lightning emanated from the coffin, was it then used in battles as a secret weapon that, with the expert handling of the high clergy, was of devastating power to the enemy? Maybe that's why the Philistines returned the ark, since they didn't know how to handle it. Otherwise, let's remember that the coffin was encrusted with gold, and gold is an excellent conductor of electricity and a reflector of heat. Keep in mind that back then, war was fought with bows and arrows and even slingshots. It's not a joke. Slingshots were a regular weapon, especially among the Israeli people. Let me remind you that David killed Goliath with an ordinary slingshot. So to conclude, the nations that defended their territories, that is, the promised land that the Israelis wanted to conquer, did not have more sophisticated weapons than the bow and arrow. It is possible that the key to the numerous military exploits of the Israelis is hidden in the Ark of the Covenant. Refugees wandering in the desert for 40 years subjugated powerful nations with the help of God. Perhaps that God's help is a kind of sophisticated weapon that was hidden in the Ark of the Covenant. Perhaps one of the best proofs is the siege of Jericho, a city that was surrounded by large walls and practically impregnable for the Israelis. According to the instructions Joshua received from God, the Israeli army was supposed to march around Jericho for 6 days, with the Ark of the Covenant at the head of the procession carried by the priests. On the 7th day, they were supposed to march 7 times around the city, and for the priests to blow the trumpets, which we will talk about another time. It was with these instructions that the walls of the city simply collapsed. It is stated in the Old Testament, "Then the people shouted and blew the trumpets, and when the people heard the sound of the trumpets and shouted behind the voice, the walls fell in their places. And the people entered the city, everyone prepared, and they took the city." Of course, we should keep in mind that the fall of the walls may have meant the surrender of the city and not the literal demolition, because after all, ancient texts were copied and translated for centuries. So perhaps over time, the meaning of the word fall of the walls was an allegory. But if it is true that the walls were literally falling down, we should ask ourselves whether the Ark of the Covenant was hiding a secret weapon that had devastating powers. There are various claims as to where the ark ended up, from Jewish priests transporting it to a secret location, through secret tunnels under the city, to being found by the Knights Templar during the conquest of Jerusalem. But there are also more recent claims, which are the claim of archaeologist Ron Wyatt that he found the Ark in 1989 under Mount Moriah, or known to us in the Bible as the Temple Mount. By the way, he took photos of the coffin, but the photos turned out blurry for some reason. Because of his claims to possess numerous relics that turned out not to be in his possession, his claims have been disputed with reason. There were a few more people who claimed to have found the coffin or were on its trail, but they did not prove their claims. However, maybe it is being searched in the wrong place. What is interesting is that one church celebrates the Ark of the Covenant and even claims to have it in its possession. The Orthodox Church in Ethiopia claims that the coffin is located in a church in Aksum. The Ark is supposedly kept in the inner treasury of the church, and only the high priests, who have practically dedicated their lives to the supposed Ark they guard, have access to it. Whether the search for the coffin is over in Ethiopia and how it could get there will be discussed in a future topic.